Hello, this is Robert at Deadartstudios, and we're painting with Deadartstudios today. And this is a painting that I'm working on at the moment, and it's an acrylic painting, and it's an impasto painting, so it's textured, and I'm using golden acrylics for this. And it's the first time I've used golden acrylics, and I've never done an impasto painting before, so I'm quite a way into this one already, and it seems to have turned into an ocean scene. Which is not really, I didn't really set out to paint anything in particular. I just had my OSB board for my starting point, which is a building material board. It's quite thick and strong, and I painted it ultramarine blue, and I went from there, just doing different textures of marks. And I suppose because it's the first time I've done an impasto painting with these acrylics, that there wasn't ever going to be much planned, just to see how it goes and see what happens. And it started off pretty abstract, and then what sort of happened, I suppose, is often with me, I start doing horizons. I think it comes from my photography, when I used to use my telephoto lens and shoot at distance, and it'd give a very flat look to any sort of landscape that you did, and there wasn't a lot of depth to it, but I kind of like the stacked look that you got out of it. It was quite artistic, I thought, and that's kind of what's happened here, I suppose. Everything looks so flat. Obviously it's super stylized, and what I'm doing here is I've got a piece of paper down on the board, and I'm just using that to create a good straight line across, because I think for this you obviously don't really want a wonky set of lines running across if horizons and horizontal lines are what you're going for. So that's just giving me a guide, and I'm using some modelling paste mixed with white titanium paint, also known as titanium white paint, and I'm sort of just using a knitting needle there to put it on at the front of the water there, and just twisting to try and create some texture. And that's kind of like the froth of the waves at the front. And as you move into the background, got a little bit of that, and then off up into a sunset, and some clouds up at the top, and then the foreground is a beach, and ultimately I think some kind of dune grassland at the front, because there's a lot of beach down there at the front at the minute, and I think that's going to change as we move on, and quite a lot of this painting might change as we move on. Anyway, so I hope you're all doing well this evening and having a good time wherever you may be. And it's late at night here again, and I've just finished another painting session on this painting, which I did record, so hopefully I'll be able to bring that to you soon. And I sat down, I had a cup of cocoa, and I put my stereo on and my headphones, and my family's in bed. Painted for a little while, and now I'm coming to record the audio for this. It's quite a long video, half an hour, a bit more, so I've got a lot of talking to myself to do, so let's see how that goes, because I'm new to that, and it'll be interesting if I can fill that amount of time with interesting-ish things. And as I was saying before, I hope wherever you are, you're having a relaxing time, a calm time if possible. And my day today has been busy as always, and I've been looking after my daughter and taking her to nursery and her tennis lesson, and she's been wild and vibrant as ever, and bless her now, she's sleeping, and we'll do it all again tomorrow. And then we're off travelling for a little bit to Germany with the family, so there won't be much painting going on there. It's just for a few days, and we'll be back. And I'll be back on again with this piece, which is actually in some ways taking longer than I thought. It's become a lot more complicated than I thought it was. And originally I thought, well, I'll get this OSB board that's got the sort of wood chip effect in it, and it's compressed and shaken and sorted and glued together, and you get this very interesting texture on it, which I like. And I thought, well, it'll just be a matter of bringing that out in some way in an abstract, something simple. And almost the temptation is just to paint the little bits of wood different colours, or in, I suppose, a more minimalist sense, just one or two of the bits as you see the composition. And I think I probably will try that at some point, but actually it's actually quite difficult to do. I have tried it before, and you have to be super perfect and super meticulous with how you do that, and you don't really get much freedom. And for me, painting is a little bit about freedom and expression, and this is what started to happen. And I wanted to do impasto, and I'd seen impasto, which is just basically thick gloopy paint. I'd seen it with acrylic before, and I thought, well, I'll do that, and I'll get the full-bodied golden acrylics by Golden, not just the colour golden, and they're slightly full-bodied, but nowhere near as full-bodied as oils, and they were sort of still slopping about a bit, and so I was a bit disappointed actually with that. Not really. I loved the colour intensity of the painting; it's absolutely amazing, but I think it's going to be quite difficult to mix realistic blends compared to oils. Oils seem to just somehow be naturally more realistic in colour. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but the intensity of the colours from the golden paints were amazing, and they do look really nice. I'm pleased about that. I was a bit disappointed by the lack of body, and then I did a little bit of research and found that you can use a modelling medium which thickens the paint up, so straight away I ordered some of that, and this is what I'm using here. And I do like it. It seems to crack when it dries if you put too much on, so I think it's a matter of caution and a layering process. And yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing you would think about doing with that kind of thing really is fluffy clouds and rolling waves, so that's what I am doing. Excuse me, I'm still ill and coughing, but I am on the recovery, and I went for a run today, which is good, because I haven't been able to, because I've been so under the weather with chest infections, so I did that today as well, and just a little 6k, stopped, got some milk from the shop, carried that home, had a cocoa, as I always do in the morning, and I've had another one in the evening. I love my cocoa. I mix it with a bit of taurine. Helps the cocoa dissolve, and also there's supposed to be health benefits to taurine, and also workout benefits as well. And I'm not sure if it's having an effect, but it's definitely not making me worse. So I'm going to stick with it, see what happens longer term. And I do find that some of the more well-known supplements do actually help me with my exercise, so I'm going to stick with those. I'm not sure they help me with my painting though. So yeah, I did my exercise today, and that is a very important facet of life for me, to exercise and also to create, and also being creative with my hands and in the garage and building frames and things for some of my other paintings, which in other videos I've made, and being out in the garden and working with plants and soil and the earth as well. These are all important things to me. And actually, the time of year, we've had so much rain that it's been difficult to do those things, and I find myself struggling a bit to be cheerful, I suppose. but I have managed to just keep going, and I think sometimes that's all you can do. And I enjoyed my run today. I hope to go out again tomorrow, and things are looking good, and I feel fairly fit, so that's not too bad. Anyway, so with this painting, I'm just putting in some colour now into the waves, and when I've finished this, I want the sort of the base background colours sort of in, but I am going to paint over and try and detail and unify it much more heavily. So almost paint the painting in a way, and I suppose you could just use the modelling medium without any paint on it and put down the textures you want, and then paint it. That might be something to try, but I think this way probably may be more successful, for getting into the deeper bits, and it might be require less meticulous work. I don't know. We will see as it goes on. There could be an argument just for putting down the texture, and it'd be so much quicker, because every now and again I decide the colours aren't right, and I go back and over with another colour. But in a way, that's the process on what you're trying to do, isn't it? Is just create something that evolves as you go. And I don't seem to be very good in painting, imagining an endpoint and reaching it. It always goes somewhere else. But actually, that's what I enjoy. Where does all this stuff come from? When it just comes out your mind, it's not even really your mind. You're just doing something, and you're just doing it, and you're doing it in a way that you think is correct. And then out of nowhere, something appears. That is quite mysterious and engaging for me. So I'm moving up to the horizon a little more here and putting a bit more. I'm forgetting all my nautical terms. It's probably a term for waves further out at sea that sort of come up. I do know a squall for a little storm, but I don't think we're talking about a squall here. So it's an active sea or ocean, but I don't think the weather's bad. I think we're having a nice evening. We've got the pink sky, and everything's good in the world, especially if you're sat on the beach watching, maybe with some friends, maybe having a beer, maybe having a bit of food. I don't know, whatever makes you happy. And we moved on to the next section now. I've finished that, and I just stopped the clip, and you can see at the bottom there's the yellow, very overly yellow bottom third. The painting that's going to be beach in June. I don't know how much beach there's going to be. I don't know how much June there's going to be. I do know from my session on it today that is going to be a battle, and I'm going to have to learn some techniques or implement some techniques to achieve what I want, because it didn't quite turn out as I planned, I suppose, but it never actually does. There's me trying to show you my modelling medium, a bit out of focus, and just getting some of that and mixing it in this little plastic dish down here. It's a yogurt pot lid. Just mix that up. And lid back on. It smells kind of nice and kind of toxic at the same time, that stuff. Sweet smell. But also, you don't have to smell it long to make it feel you're a little bit ill. So, lid on, lid off. Lid off, lid on, quickly. And here I'm mixing in some cadmium orange, and I have to say the cadmium orange of the golden acrylics is not like cadmium orange that I'm used to in oils. Excuse me. It seemed a bit paler, and then when you put anything into this modelling medium, it immediately goes matte and pastel. So I think that's an argument for glazing and dry brushing over. So I mix this up, and this is going to form some more sky, some clouds. And I lift it up and manage not to drop it all over the painting, which does and can happen. And I'm just spreading it on with the palette knife across. And I was quite happy actually with the contrasting colour on this. It added a new dimension to the picture that we didn't have before. It was kind of nice. It's also kind of food-like. There's almost a cake decorating element to this kind of thing. And I do a little bit of baking, but I never decorate. Well, I do decorate cakes, but I don't decorate them like that. Or to that great extent. Just usually some basic icing, maybe a bit of flour or two, something like that on the top with the icing. And that's a lot for me with baking. I eat the cake far too quickly. And then I'm using a comb here just to pull it across and create texture. And so I wanted that slight movement feel, so I went across rather than fluffing up or swirling around. That sort of dragged across feel to it. Sort of play on the horizontals nature of the picture, I suppose, as well. And then I'm just throwing the rest on, and then I style it to the extent that I can. There we go, I spilled a bit, but you can just smooth that out and paint over it. So it's not really a problem. There we go. Try and clean it off, wipe it in, and there you go. You've got a bit of reflection off the water, a bit of colour in the water, which is what you would have anyway. So it's a nice reminder to me to glaze into the water what is above, which is the sky. And just swirling in there with the needle a bit, and then a bit more with a palette knife. Just trying to create something aesthetic for me that I'm happy with, and it's quite difficult. You can easily do something that you like and then just move it a bit, and then you don't like it, and then you wish you had just stuck to what you had before. So using the knitting needle again. This is my knitting needle. I'm trying to knit a sweater at the minute for winter. I think it will be ready for summer, which is obviously not when you want it to be ready for, so maybe for next winter. And that's slow progress. I've already made a mistake once and decided to start again. I've been knitting for about a year. I started that to stop me scrolling endlessly through my phone. There's times of the day when you're doing childcare that, the kids are looking after themselves, but you can't leave them by themselves because they're too little. So you need to be nearby and looking up at what's going off, but you don't need to be fully invested. And that's normally when you start scrolling through your phone, and hours upon hours of that can be very destructive to the mind, I find, although I am a big fan of especially YouTube and modern media. I do think endless up-scrolling is a bit of a problem, so I decided to try knitting instead, and it became quickly quite a great interest. There's not many guys knitting out there. There should be. It's a great thing for practicing perfection. Every single stitch, there's thousands, tens of thousands of stitches, and you want to get each one as uniform as possible, and you only have to make one mistake and you're in pretty big trouble. If you don't spot it straight away, you can work back. If you don't spot it, you're in big trouble. So it's more high stakes than you would think, really. At least for me. My partner laughs at me because I can get so crazy and stressed knitting. I think anyone who knits big projects will know that can happen. So I'm doing the sweater. It's in black. There's going to be some stripes towards the bottom, but we're a long way off of that yet. And black's difficult to knit with because you can't see your stitches so easily. So already I've set myself a big challenge there. So I'm blending the sky in now a little bit into the more horizontal bit that I did. I did that bit with the comb as well underneath the pink. And now I'm blending in with a brush, just the orange as well. And we'll paint all that in with more detail, I think, as we go. Just trying to blend it. Mainly I'm trying to clean up that orange that I dropped in there. But then I thought, well, while we're here, let's try and create a reflective element at the same time. This painting's 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres approximately, so it's pretty small. But there's a lot of work that goes into it. Now we're on the bottom here, and I decided I just did some brown to sort of give it the idea that this is going to be a dune soil area. And I tried using a syringe on this, and I think I started thinking pebbles, and I soon realised that pebbles wasn't going to work. I like the roundness, and for some kind of total abstract that would be interesting in future to use. But I decided pretty quickly that that's not for this painting. And I have a sip of cocoa, then you can just see that upper frame, and then I sort of carry on trying to work a pebble or a rock. But even though the top is stylized, it's got a hint of realism to it, and a round blob for a rock is just not even remotely acceptable for the rest of the piece. I mean, the rest of the piece is a cartoon, isn't it? It's a pastiche of real life. But giant pebbles, I mean, I could have worked harder at trying to do some boulders. But I think ultimately I just changed my mind on the whole thing, as you'll see in a moment. At this point I was just thinking about chocolate because it looked so chocolatey. Gently trying to move it in and remove any peaks. And actually one thing I have thought about with this medium is it's really nice when you get the sharp peaks on the top, but they really could easily sort of break. And if you want to create a long-standing work of art, then maybe lots of tiny little thin peaks on the top of your painting is maybe not a good idea. So I've been trying to push those down when I can. I must apologise about this coughing, but there's not much I can do about it, and I don't think I can not make the videos because of that. So I will just continue and hope that it doesn't destroy the aura too much. So I'm doing another one here, and as soon as it becomes obvious, I think the two together, as soon as it becomes obvious to me that it's not a great plan, I'm still persisting. I'm thinking, no, it's how they relate to one another. But already they should be kind of stacked, shouldn't they? I mean, when do you see pebbles at a beach? Just when you're at the top of the beach, they're all just stacked up on each other. So I don't think it was a nice idea, and I'll save it for something else in the future. But there we go. I start moving towards spreading, and I've been battling with this front portion of the work today, and actually I think it is going to be the most difficult bit. It may well change again. I don't know. We will see. Everything about this painting seems to have changed as we go on. I've got quite a few paintings on the go at the minute. Some I've already made videos about. My little purple painting, that is causing me great confusion as to what it is or could be or isn't, and it's drying. I think it's going to get a radical rework to the point where I'm just kind of reusing the board almost. And I have my scary siren picture that I've not actually put on YouTube yet, actually, now I think about it. I recently watched a video about how to make your work saleable, and I was like, one of the things it said was, don't do anything scary. I thought, well, I suppose that's why I'm doing this sea scene, and this appeals to me because I love going to the ocean. I always feel so calm when I'm there. So, you know, it's not really, I'm not really compromising anything, but a lot of what I do is normally has a troubled sort of aspect to it, really. To me, that is art, in a way. But anyway, I'd like to sell some paintings as well, and I can appreciate that not everybody wants some traumatized painting on their wall, so I'm not going to discriminate and limit myself just for the sake of it, for some sake of ideal. I'll have a go at everything and try and create happy as well as sad. And yeah, so my scary siren piece is a bit traumatizing even for me, so I think that's just going to be a personal piece. We'll see. Maybe somebody wants to be traumatized throughout their day on their wall. But you know, there are cultures and groups of people who, you know, appreciate darker stuff. And if you think about gothic work and jewelry and fashion and art, there's a whole underground, not really underground, is it? But, a different subculture of folks who really appreciate that stuff. And even though I don't really dress in that fashion or that style, I certainly appreciate that stuff and taking some inspiration from it, and we all should, I think, whenever possible, dip our toe into other little facets, take what we can and what we want, leave what we don't to the folks who are there. And so I'm just moving on this now. I'm just trying to create a basic foreground, the idea of sort of cliff front that's maybe broken down towards the beach, and there's grass will be growing on it and things like this. So, you know, a sort of a broken cliff down towards the beach front. And this brown's very pastel, flat, chocolate, cheap chocolate brown, and it's just there to say to me, this is the front of the painting, and it's a broken down cliff at the moment. So, you know, it's going to get painted over because it's not right as it stands, but it gives the impression of what I want to do further down the line. And this is the last little bit where I put a foreground waves, some foreground water in anyway, where when you're paddling in the ocean and it washes up and around your feet. You get that sort of swirling around feel, and then it sucks back out. I wanted to sort of create that kind of vibe, and I decided to use a greeny blue for this. As you know, as the water shallows out, it does change colour. In Britain, it's mainly a bit brown, but you do see in some places like Scotland this sort of turquoisey blue, so that's what I went with. I didn't fancy a bit brown on the front of my water, so fantasy won the day on that. And I'm all up for a bit of realism, and maybe one day I will do a total realism painting, maybe even try hyper realism. I think I can do it. I don't know if I want to do it. I don't think I can necessarily do it. You see some of these amazing people do it where they basically just start top left and work straight down like a inkjet printer and just almost print out with their pencil this entirely realistic, photorealistic piece of work. It's interesting how the brain transfers from 2 dimensions into 3, because if you look at a photo, is it really realistic? How much are you just filling in with your imagination? Is it just enough of a cue for your brain to say, okay, that's real? Because it's not really real. We could muse about that for many an hour, I would think. Okay, so I'm holding the board down there and blocking the camera, but, you know, you gotta hold the board. You don't want it to move. And slide out a shot. So there we go. And there's some sort of wavy bits at the front that I like there. And then there's some bits that are a bit smudgy that I don't. I've come around the other side. Don't think I wobbled the tripod too much. At this point I was feeling pretty good and in the zone about the whole thing. I was feeling like what I was going to do wasn't going to make a mistake. Whereas when I was doing the front part, the brown, I definitely felt out of my depth and like I was just not really painting and just making a mess. But you can rescue messes and change messes, so I continued. But this bit, I did feel like this was good painting, executing what I wanted to do. And I'll make more of these videos. I think I'm going to go for the commentary approach so that I can focus on my painting rather than talking as I paint, which is what I was doing before. And the video is nearly over, so I thank you for watching. Hopefully you come back, watch some more, check out my shorts, check out my Instagram if you fancy it, or my TikToks, which is new and I'm kind of enjoying, strangely. It's a crazy place, TikTok, but not necessarily a bad one. Anyway, it's been great to talk to you, and have a good evening wherever you are. Carry on watching if you want for the last little few seconds, but this is Robert at Deadartstudios, and I'll see you next time.